we stood there and watched both towers crumble, and that right then and there, it hit me. Okay, this is serious.
Bodies flying all over, just things falling apart. I mean, it's towers falling.
I said, that's not happening. I mean, this building cannot go down. And sure it was. It just collapsed. It just went straight down. And so by that point, I started to cry.
There's 50,000 people in those two towers. How could we possibly have those many funerals, you know? I didn't even in a minute think that anyone could get out.
There's just like a wave around the room, and we just all put our stuff down, and we just sat down and stared with our mouths open.
I just kind of sat down. I just was glued to the TV for hours after that.
And so a lot of people that I work with were very alarmed and almost in a state of panic.
It hit me very hard, as even though I was probably 800 miles away from this event.
I was shocked. I mean, it was just, trying to find out everything I could.
I was just afraid to go out because one's whole sense of reality was shaken.
We had a lot of people in the office just crying at their desks, other people just talking because they needed to talk.
Everybody that was in the store stopped.
I couldn't believe what was going on, and I was really scared.
And I just couldn't believe it that something like this could happen in America, in New York.
I was in shock. I just couldn't even speak.
A lot of us started crying, and we just really didn't know, how to feel, what to feel.
I couldn't imagine who would do this. I couldn't imagine how anybody could hate us enough to do something like this, I guess.
Shocked that it didn't happen in Chicago and Houston and LA and other places I expected it to be.
It was just very shocking to have such a thing happen here in the United States.
Not everyone gets along in the world, and there's bound to be something like this.
But to go this far, it's beyond my realm of comprehension.
It wasn't until I saw it on the television that it actually hit me, the reality of what had happened.
And try to picture it in your mind, and then you actually get to see everything that was happening with the news coverage, which I didn't get to see that night till about 5 o'clock, and it was just unbelievable.
It was just a lot to absorb.
We had 1,900 employees in the building, and 11 people were missing.
One of my brother's best friends worked in the World Trade Center. I think it was the first tower on the 106th floor, and he did not make it out.
I have a nephew who has a cleaning business, and one of his workmen was in the building.
He was caught in black smoke. He didn't know what was going on. And it was like in a movie, he said out of nowhere, somebody grabbed him.
My son-in-law's good friends, he had been killed. He was on the 105th floor. He had called his wife and said, "I'm okay, I'm making my way down." And of course he never did.
My supervisor, she lost her brother, who had a family and kids, and another one lost his sister.
Thankfully, everyone got out. Everyone that had been there made it out alive.
I went out in the yard and found, we live about 6 miles from World Trade, and found actual securities documents that had apparently come from there. They were a little charred.
And then the next day, I guess the anger starts, like, why did they do this? It's hard to believe it, actually.
After several days of feeling the sadness, I believe it then turned into kind of an anger and almost revenge, which is unusual for me.
At that point, I don't think I had any blame because I wasn't sure who to blame for it.
How could people do this, and how could people not see that this was coming?
Who would do that? Was it somebody who was deranged? Was it a group of people who were deranged? I really didn't think of any terrorist act or anything like that.
I really didn't even think of who might have done that. It just seemed unbelievable.
I remember the news that there was suspicion that it had been terrorists from the Middle East, and wondering how they could have decided that so soon.
You know, I immediately thought it's a September 11 organization. This is the organization that has killed Israeli athletes in Munich.
Iraq and Saddam Hussein was my first guess that this was something that he had hired out these people to get back at President Bush for what his father had done.
I blame a lot of it on our government.
We're kind of the global bullies, and if you push someone hard enough, they're gonna get up and push you back.
I was a little bit surprised how much our teachers were willing to come out and say that we had to take some responsibility too.
If, you know, people had just known, or the government had known, you know, maybe a lot of this stuff wouldn't have happened.
You know, hindsight is 20/20, so I guess something like that you can never really expect, no matter how much intelligence you have or information you have.
I don't think that we were even speculating about who might have done it.
At that point in time, it's fuzzy for me.
It wasn't necessarily blame, just not being able to fathom that it was happening.
I think at the beginning I blamed myself, because I always have a tendency to blame myself.
A lot of people that knew people directly that were there felt more anger. I just felt a deep sadness, just like a pit in my chest.
I couldn't believe it. Terrorists had that big of a success.
I just couldn't imagine who would want to kill so many people all at once. It just didn't make any sense to me.
Some kind of anger, but it was still just shock, disbelief, rage, but I can't say directed.
Like it said, I wouldn't blame Muslims for it. It's just a certain group of people and how they're brought up, and I'm sure they have their reasons, but I don't think any of it's really justified.
They have their reasons, whether they're good or bad.
As we all know, there are no democracies there. There's no way of expressing it. And they thought, well, America is an easy target.
But I don't understand how someone, could hold that much anger towards an entire country, for 4 or 5 people's mistakes.
What are these people thinking? It's not their religion so much as a bastardized form of a religion that's causing them to do what they're doing.
The religion of Islam and its extreme nature at some points are what caused it.
And how do we deal with people that think that they have permission from God, basically, to do harm to people that they don't like?
It's going to be etched in our memories forever, and hopefully we can take precautions with our national security to prevent these, travesties from happening.
I don't know if the world's going to like it, but we're going to become more international. We're going to see the world in a different way.
It's just very upsetting to think of man's inhumanity to man.
Well, I just felt very sorry that so many people got hurt because of that.
And I hope that the things that happened that day will change all of us, so that we won't harbor bitterness, we won't harbor anger.
Sometimes I guess it takes an event like this for us to unite and, be together and show our support and love for one another, although we're all different.
Indian people, people of other races, anybody being blamed for the actions of these few people made me think that I could also be blamed.
We need to rethink our place in the world and our responsibility. We've been given so much. We have so much. What do we do with that?
What I remember about the day is just how perfect the day started, and how quickly the day turned out to be one of the worst days I remember.